So we're just going to run through very quickly what we've been at for the last 4 weeks now. We were concentrating excavation and cutting 3 just to my left and cutting 4 behind me, and we opened up a brand new excavation that we're going to have a look at in a minute, cutting 6. But it's thrown up some surprising results. We had hoped to get cutting 3 finished. I think we'll be back in it now in the summer because we've had some new features that we weren't expecting to get literally just in the last couple of days. So we'll have a quick look at them. The first one is here. So we always had disturbed deposits here. We knew this from the last time we were out on the site last summer. So we went in to assess them and we found 2 things. We found a small little pit with plastic in it, which we're pretty sure is a metal detectorist pit. So that was sort of in this area here. And we know there are metal detectorists on the site in the 1980s. We have found evidence of them elsewhere. Just remember, folks, that's illegal, by the way, okay? And then you can see that this little pit was cut through a much earlier feature, which is quite significant, 5 or 6 fills. It's a deep enough linear feature running off this way, okay? The significance of this linear feature is it goes under our chapel wall, and it also, presumably, although that remains to be confirmed, goes over mortar deposits in the background, as well as evidence of our bank on site. So we may have quite a bit of materials to shift here. We'll obviously leave this wall in situ, our chapel wall, probable chapel wall. But we may have quite a bit of material to shift over there to assess this linear further. Nothing giving us a hint of a date yet or giving us a hint of function, but in terms of sequencing of what's on top of what, it's certainly an early feature on site. So who knows, it could even be pre-Anglo-Norman. We have no idea. We just have to wait and see, okay? Coming across, this is another feature we picked up. So let's start from top down, I guess. We started picking up a lot of new mortar spreads, variously going across the place. We had thought this might be a pad for the wall because we can see that the wall is built on mortar here. The wall has been robbed out from this point. We know it continues, so we had thought this mortar originally might be a pad for the wall to continue that way, okay? We had a stone dump here which we've taken up, and then when we went down we found another grey linear feature coming across this way. So again, something new that we weren't expecting. This only turned up yesterday evening, so we've put a little slot through it. It's brand new. We're not really sure what it is. We know it continues that way. Presumably also continues this way. So we had to have another look at that in the summer. The mortar pads in themselves are quite interesting. An awful lot of new mortar turning up, and mortar that's quite different to what we had previously on site. But I guess what's interesting or intriguing, or what's a little bit difficult for us, was we thought we had the phasing and sequencing of the site worked out, and then we found that these mortars, as you can see here, are continuing under an organic layer here and a sand layer here, and we thought that the mortars post-dated those layers. So obviously they all don't. Some may, but not all of them. So we have to come back and have a look at this whole area of the site as well next summer, presumably taking all this down. The last thing we did this year is we finished out our sondages down to the level of natural subsoil. So if it looks like they're sort of a strange shape, there's very good reason. We're trying to preserve as much of the archaeology in situ as possible, especially any of the masonry or surfaces. So we don't in any way want to undermine these walls, so we've worked around them. Whatever evidence of the walls was left, we left in place. But we'll hop into one. So we're getting down to a strange mixed natural sort of here. And again, you can see the various different layers above those. But of note is this grey, sometimes changing to black layer, running around the whole sort of perimeter of these sondages, these cuts within the cut. We again think that's the 12th century ground surface, so a nice neat layer where the guys are all recording in the background. They're recording what subsequently was built up over that 12th century ground surface. So evidence of the bank, evidence of the 18th and 19th century quarrying, and modern topsoil. So a lot of work done in here, a lot of digging, especially in this area. Virtually no finds from this area, which you'd sort of expect because a lot of them are sterile, redeposited gravels and naturals when they threw up the bank. Nearly all our finds came from just in front of me there where we talked about initially. So that's where we're at with cutting 3. We're probably going to finish to about here and backfill this, get it ready, present the walls, again build replica walls over the line of these walls. And then the northern end, which is down this way, we'll be back in the summer trying to figure out what's going on with those new features we just turned up. So we'll go over and have a look at cutting 4 now. Excuse me. So cutting 4, I guess, in the last few days, we only got in it about a week ago, a week and a half ago, and that's thrown up some well, not surprises, but new features that we weren't necessarily expecting. If you remember from previous updates, we always had a series of pits in the background. We've taken out some more of those. They have a few sherds of medieval pottery in them. We're not really sure of their function. Maybe they were dug to extract materials for construction or for pottery making, to extract clay or sand. We're not 100% sure. We always said this rubble area here was evidence of the northeast corner of the chapel where it turns back. But we went down a bit deeper this year and we picked up 3 burnt features. So where the girls are planning just here, we had an oxidized spread, which has ended up being a cut feature, okay? And of significant enough depth, as you can see on camera. Where Olivia's trailing in the blue behind, say hi Olivia. We had a charcoal spread, which just seems to be a skim. So we have a deliberately constructed feature where the guys are planning, but just a charcoal skim on the background. And then when Claire is trailing, Claire, can you wave at the camera? Where Claire is trailing, we thought we had another charcoal spread, but now again it looks to be a much more significant cut feature, okay, containing an awful lot of burnt material. So we have industrial activity of some description going on here, all in close proximity, all in a defined area. Unfortunately, we've only really classified this as a cut feature in the last sort of day or two. So we're definitely going to be back in, the staff are going to be back in, myself and Richard and whoever else are going to be back in assessing this next week. So we have most of this area dealt with, but we definitely need to finish this feature out. What is interesting about these and sort of in terms of the whole site is that you again may remember from previous updates that all the way over on cutting 2 is where we had all the 12th century archaeology. So we had the pits, we had the stake holes, we had the posts, we had the hearts. We have virtually no 12th century features in cutting 1 or in cutting 3, and then we're picking them up again in cutting 4. What that means, if you looked at a site plan, is that all the 12th century features seem to be confined to the western and the eastern limits of the ringwork, or of the enclosure, with very little in the central area. And we haven't figured out why that is. Is it because there was an entrance there and that took a certain amount of space? Is it because other structures were here, early stone structures? But why was the industry and the wooden structures, certainly on current evidence, sort of confined or pushed out to the western and eastern limits? So we have a bit to do here. You'll see patches as well, again, where Olivia's troweling, where we're coming down on the grey, which is again similar to the 12th century ground surface that we just looked at in 3 and that we found in other cuttings. And we're getting natural coming through in lots of places. So presumably when we come back in the summer, it won't take that long to excavate out the last bits of the deposits and get down to natural subsoil. That is, of course, assuming that we don't start throwing up new surprises and new features like we've just done the last few days in 3 and 4. So a few things we weren't expecting. Good archaeology, good finds. We got a beautiful arrowhead from cutting 3, and we got some of the nicest pottery we've had from the dig from in here. But as I said, a few surprises thrown up. But if we go to 6 now, we'll show you which was a much simpler cutting. No surprises at all really, but we'll go over and have a quick look. So we're just leaving the ringwork now. Walking over the ditch, obviously, we've just gone through the bank. So the first thing you'll probably notice is that cutting 6 is quite some distance away from the site. And it's our first cutting outside of the ringwork, but still where we believe the limits of the medieval town would have been. And it's in the woods. So it was all a bit of a surprise for us. Well, not a surprise, just something new. So in we come. So the first thing you'll see, it's a 10 by 8 metre cutting. We're down to the level of natural subsoil. And there's obviously a good overburden of modern topsoil, this stuff here, across the cutting. Nothing really archaeological in it, except for one feature, which is a furrow. So you might be able to make it out in camera. It's quite hard after the rain, but there's a linear feature coming up this way, a narrow one. Brown in the centre, yellow, natural subsoil to the side. We've put a little section through it. It seems to be a furrow, an agricultural furrow, possibly spade dug for potatoes or something else, who knows. Frequently these come in systems. We didn't get any others in the cutting. It could just be that whoever was digging this one went a bit deeper, went through the topsoil and into the subsoil, so this is the only one that survives. The reason we are here is that, as we've said in previous videos, we're expanding the project to start building the lost town of Carrick, and we want to dedicate it home, for want of a better word, for our experimental archaeology program. By putting it in this cutting, number one, we know we can't impact archaeology, because we now know there's no archaeology in here. It's all been resolved and dealt with, the one thing we did have. And as importantly, we're going to be making authentic replicas of medieval features, and we'll know exactly where they are. So if archaeologists come back or future generations come back to the site, they'll know the features were constructed in this area and they won't confuse them with the real archaeology on the site. I guess the other thing that we've learned from doing this is there doesn't seem to be much archaeology in this area. So was the town predominantly across the road, or did it spread from the ringwork, which is now about 30 meters north of us, and come straight from the ringwork across, but they didn't extend too far south, at least with structures. So there may have been field boundaries, there may have been divisions, there may have been, I suppose, division of space down here, but that the town itself was north of us and going across. So even though we found nothing, it's still useful information. It still tells part of the story of the Carriga settlement. What we'd like to look at in future years is putting another cutting further north, closer to the settlement itself. Excuse the phone, guys. So we'll look at putting a cutting maybe much closer, 20 or 30 meters north, further that way. So that's sort of where we're at. One cutting done. We expected to have 2 done, didn't get through cutting 3. That's archaeology. A few surprises came up in the last couple of days, so we'll be back in it again. And hopefully back in the summer, we'll be opening up a new cutting in the ringwork interior. And much more excitingly, or as excitingly, we'll be across in the town for the first time, excavating in Carricktown itself. So keep following us, subscribe to the Park channel. If you like the updates, make sure to keep an eye on what's coming out, and we'll talk to you in the summer. Thanks folks, bye bye.